Mhm.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us from different parts of Region 10 and around the world. And the Region 10 Women in Engineering is excited to welcome you all to the inaugural edition of the We as We, which is a brand new professional development series of workshops and talks, which is brought to you by our very own Region 10 Women in Engineering committee. I'm Aishwarya Banla, a scientist at the National University of Singapore and also a member of the Region 10 Women in Engineering Executive Committee. And along with my committee members, we once again extend a very warm welcome to you for the first talk, which will be by our distinguished guest, Chitra Venkatraman, who's joining us all the way from the other end of the world, from the US. And she's going to share with us on smart career management, which is a very, very interesting topic. Before we get into the talk, we have a couple of introductory comments. May I welcome Amy Yano, who is the IEEE Region 10 WIE coordinator, to deliver the welcome remarks.
Okay, thank you, Aish. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the We as We session. So Region 10 WA is very happy to start the We as We program. So this is a series of professional development workshop and interactive talks, which brings together leaders from various backgrounds to inspire and enlighten our community. Today, as our first session, we are very pleased to welcome Ms. Chitra Venkatraman from North Jersey section, Region 1, and to speak the topic smart career management, smart career management. So thank you very much, Chitra, for coming today. And also, Dipaksa, Region 10, Region 10, sorry, Region 10 Director is joining us today. So thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time to attend our first session of We as We. So this is a very great opportunity to learn about the career development. And it is really important to think about your career. So I hope all of you enjoy the session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aish. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy, for the very warm welcome. Up next, we have our very loving and motivating Region 10 Director. May I call upon Deepak Mathur, sir, to welcome the crowd.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you very much. Our today's distinguished guest, Chitra Venkatraman, and my IEEE colleagues. Hi, everyone. So thank you, Amy, for inviting me to this well-thought and nicely planned talk on smart career management. And thank you, Aishwarya, for sharing details of this program. I strongly feel it is a very important topic to be introduced at early stage of one's career. And I'm very curious to listen to Chitra, and I believe it is never too late to bring changes in one's life. So Chitra, thank you very much for accepting our request of Region 10 to speak to Region 10 members, and I'm sure your 4 decades of rich experience with industry shall ignite the minds of all attendees. Yes, I fully agree with you. We should not work only to pay the bills. We should have a career. And for that, we must do some conscious efforts to manage it. WI, that is Women in Engineering Affinity Group, is a very important activity of IEEE. And I'm happy that Region 10 WI is one of the very active affinity groups of IEEE with its dedicated volunteers and thought leadership. To me, WI is not just an affinity group. It is a huge responsibility with great mission of promoting women in engineering and science. And our goal is not only to encourage girls for STEM education, but we must see that those who join education, they should complete the education. And they should also join a profession and stay in the profession. And for this, we can do with various programs and activities, especially designed to handle such issues. So there may be many obstacles in this journey, and we have to provide a support system to address such issues. And I'm happy to see that Region 10 WI is innovative, creative in developing new programs. Programs like WIE and Mentor Hub are great ideas converted into useful programs. I remember uh, that Region 10 SYWL Congress 2020, probably if my memory is right, that Mentor Hub program was presented by Singapore section as an idea. And I'm really happy to see that this is also being converted into a program. And workshops on career management, soft skill development, workshops on leadership skills and technical skills are absolutely necessary in today's fast changing technical and social scenario. And I appreciate starting a professional skill development series by WI Region 10. And as I just told that Mentor Her, the pilot mentorship program is also an excellent initiative of Region 10 WI. And I'm confident that Region 10 WI would definitely add great value through these initiatives. I appreciate efforts of and contribution of Region 10 WI team, and I congratulate you all for your great achievements. So let us hear valuable thoughts of Chitra Venkatraman now, and let me conclude by thanking you all. And I really feel privileged and honored to be with all of you today. And I thank Region 10 WI team once again for the invitation and giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepak sir. Stay tuned, everyone, to hear more about Mentor Her. And meanwhile, like Deepak sir and Amy were mentioning, it's as engineers, we tend to get buried in the technical details and focusing on gathering so much technological innovation and advancements. But another whole aspect to a well-rounded professional is topics like these where we pay attention to professional development. And an excellent topic to start off, in my opinion, is smart career management, which covers the whole spectrum of it. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Chitra Venkatraman. Like Deepak mentioned, she has had a 4-decade-long career as a technical manager at Nokia in New Jersey. She received her bachelor's in engineering from the University of Madras, India, and a master's from the Rutgers University in New Jersey. And after graduation, she joined the AT&T Bell Labs as a member of the technical staff. And from there, she has held a long, illustrious career. And under her leadership, Chitra's team covered every wireless technology from analog to LTE, and often working extensively with global wireless operators, including Reliance India. Chitra is currently a senior member of IEEE, and she keeps herself very active and engaged with the community, IEEE community at her place. And she currently serves as the IEEE North Jersey section employment and career services, including covering activities in the pre-university and also the Women in Engineering chair. Can't wait to hear what you have, Chitra, to offer to our region members. Over to you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
now I need to share, right? So I just click and share. So before I get started, just a little bit, I retired in 2018. Since then, I've been trying to sort out, chart my retired career. And one of the big part of my retirement career is actually Red Cross work. So literally, before I even left the company, I made a beeline to Red Cross to join Red Cross, and I work as a disaster, one of the members of the disaster program. And I'm hoping right now I'm confined to New Jersey, and in the long run, I'm hoping to get beyond. But the rest of my time is spent mostly on STEM, IEEE, Liberty Science Center. It's all about teaching the youngsters that the value of going into engineering. Before I get started, if I may, I would love to share this little presentation that we made at work, and I will later will tell you why and how it connects with my topic. So hopefully I will be able, unfortunately, I don't know, I haven't figured out how to do the music. It goes with the Hatari music, but most of you guys are too young to know Atari, maybe except the. So I'm going to start this and let me know if the slideshow it comes through at least.
Can you share again the screen? So no, we cannot see your slide.
Can you guys see it?
We cannot see a screen yet. Perhaps if you can try to share it once again.
Okay. Try to and show. So did you guys not see the presentation?
Not as yet.
Oh, really? Oh, well, anyway, we'll get to it maybe later. I'm gonna start sharing. Let me start my presentation, and I will gonna get my presentation going. All right. Hopefully I can share. My presentation is coming. Let's see. Now, do you guys see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. And all right. Now you see the full screen of my presentation. Is that good?
We see the screen. See, it is divided into two.
Now, do you see it now? Still nothing?
Yeah.
Chitra, we can see your screen now.
Yeah.
We
Do
can
you see
your
my presentation?
Yeah, but do you next slide is also visible to us.
Oh, next slide is visible. Okay, okay. All right. Now, how do we fix that?
You can
Select.
Oh, there we go. Is that good?
Yes. Okay, this works.
That works?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to that works, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So now I do have a slideshow that will start. All right. Am I good to go?
Yes. Great.
Okay, great. Okay, you guys can see it. So anyway, just a little bit about where it came about. My company was very, very, I don't know, flying high is the word to say. It's just sort of like the Googles and Amazon of today. From I don't know, many decades until about the 90s. During the 90s, there was a big downturn. And after the divestiture and divestiture, the Bell Labs and the AT&T, the communication giant, was starting to unravel. And that unraveling kind of went on through the 90s. And when it got close to the 2000, things got really bad. For the first time in the whole history of our company, people started to get laid off. I'm kind of a person who makes a lot of friends, and keep my friendships along the building. I've already worked in the building for nearly 20 years, and I knew a lot of people. And what happened was I was walking down the halls, and I will come across people who are very, very distraught because they've been told their job is ending. That would be their last day. Usually they would give you only one day to leave the building. One after another, I came across a lot of people. Now, especially in this community was quite a lot of Asians, right? And the Indians and so many of the Chinese population, and they're all like scratching their heads like, I did this and I did that and I created this, I designed this whole thing, and I got a raving review, but how did I end up? My job is going away, whereas another colleague of mine that I personally don't perceive to be a high performer is staying. This kind of a thing I heard over and over again, to the point that I got to thinking that I may have to do something, because for about 5 years by that time, I had been a manager. When I moved from the technical contributor to management position, I had a bit of a shock, kind of a, what do you call it, hitting a wall, realizing how different is all the performance review and the evaluation and everything takes place compared to when I was an employee. My perception as an employee was quite a bit different than when I became a manager and I sat with other managers to review people. It's like, oh, it was a big eye-opening experience for me. It's like, oh, this is how it works. So what I did was I put together quickly, whoever got laid off, not much we can do about that. But the remaining people I felt needed some help. So I put together a presentation on very specifically on performance review and all the things you don't know about performance review kind of thing. And my first presentation was actually in Asian Heritage Club month activity that we do every May. So I had a spot as a speaker and I made a presentation. It was so overwhelmingly received that the demand kind of grew and grew, and I made that presentation many times. As a matter of fact, I was a little worried that when I make this presentation, some executive person will show up in my presentation. So what the hell are you doing? You're not a HR person, and you're telling people about the performance review. But surprisingly, I had a lot of executives, directors, and everybody come and kind of give me compliments on personalizing performance review to people. Because it's something that only was a kind of a secret between executives and leadership team and the HR. So anyway, it kind of evolved from there in right around 2001, 2002. And then from then on, I made many of these different presentations. And at one point, my presentation got the attention of someone that I got roped into a volunteer program in Africa for young women empowerment. And the next thing you know, I was on a plane to Africa for the next several years on and off. And I made 7 or 8 trips to Africa, participating in some of the empowerment programs. So this really took me places. So why is this a kind of a interesting topic about how people get reviewed and evaluated? Here is my perception I wanted to give you is a triangle of how people are managed in a company. There's human resources, okay? It's sort of like a one-way street from human resources. They operate in their little vacuum and they tell people, okay, you're going to have a performance review. This is the policy. These are the processes. And they recruit you, they fire you, they do all these things. It's very rare to have an arrow going back to human resources. They have their own executive, they have their own people. And I don't know about India again, or the region 10. In the West, in my experience, human resources is predominantly staffed by non-technical people. These are people who've never been engineers being in this spot or even in this spot, right? They come in with some psychology or other backgrounds, specialized training in human resources. But then again, we have engineers and then we have leadership. So all the career management, really, if you think about it, is really in this back and forth, right? We engineers work and the leadership team decides how far you go, where you go, what do you do, and whether you get to stay, whether you get to leave. So this is sort of what I wanted to break this triangle and say, hey, how do you establish your career? That's kind of where I got my start. So what is a career journey of today? Now, things have definitely been evolving from the time I started working in 1981 is actually my first job by Westinghouse. And Union Carbide was in 1978 that I started, and I worked for a few years. Now, lots has changed, and also there are cultures of how things work in East Coast of the United States and the West Coast and India or wherever else. In many ways, they are different, but in some other ways, they're all kind of the same. right? So how does a career progress? And we'll talk about today's climate is, it's a lot like how the pioneers, whether it's in India, the sultans or others came to find the country, or I should really say, get to know the country, which existed many thousands of years, or the pioneers that traveled through United States, taking over this whole place and kind of destroying some things along the way. It's a lot like that, because in a career, just like in a real pioneering expedition, around every corner, you have no idea what's waiting for you. Just when I thought I was beautifully, squarely settled in my first position in Bell Labs, which was power engineering, central office power, all of a sudden one day there's a gathering and they announced that our entire organization is moving to Dallas, Texas. And you can pack up and leave, or you're out the door. You go find yourself a job wherever. I mean, from the moment that was announced, within a matter of 2-3 months, everything was moving fast. And we either had to move to Texas or lose our position in that particular organization, find a job. And you can only imagine that the chaos and the trauma that many of us went through, those of us especially who didn't want to go to Texas. And then there is this, so this is something that factors into how the career is going to have lots of twists and turns. And the next thing is the definition of success. Everyone's success is different. We all should not be comparing notes. For example, there is another Chitra Chitra K and Chitra K and Chitra V were two famous Chitras in my company, right? We were very different people. And our definition of success was different. What we strived for in a personal life and professional life was different. I was very much of a techie. I resisted any opportunity to move into management. That just was me. Chitra was born to lead, Chitra K. I mean, she dropped everything at a drop of a bucket. I mean, she just took off literally with the clothes on her back and a little suitcase to Bangalore to take over the Bangalore location one fine day. I could have never imagined doing that. She led that organization because things kind of went bad over there. And from then on, she had held many leadership positions. So it's kind of interesting. Same name. We're both from same Tamil Nadu. We're both from same background. We actually are good friends personally, but very different definition of success. So you will have to define your success in the beginning of your career. And this definition will change as you travel through your career. And another very important part for me is the core of you. I kind of defined it along the way on my own. I think everyone has a person inside of you that is, I think a lot of you right here in this call, you're volunteers with IEEE. That to me is the core of you, is to help others. That is your, so it doesn't matter you are designing the next big nuclear reactor or next big wireless system. I bet you this core personality of you to help others will come through at every step of your career, where you're the person who's going to help the person next to you who's struggling to figure something out, maybe figuring out a scope or a spectrum analyzer or figuring out a process in this company. So we all have to understand and allow that core to carry you. For example, people who are writers, even when they become engineers, they become specification engineers. They write system requirements, right? That's what I mean by the core of your person. And then we'll get to a little bit about some of the background here. Now, what is smart career? Now, everybody's looking at this picture, right? And these people are in the circus and they have years and years of practice. And when you just look at them and you're thinking, oh, they got it, they nailed it, they know exactly what they're doing, everybody's in great alignment, in perfect ease. But that's not quite what's happening, is it? So there is gravity, they have their talent. All these people are fearless to begin with, right? There's a lot of training. And most important part of it is the collaboration. If any one of these 5 people ever so slightly go off, they're all going to fall off of the piano, right? So what they are also doing is they are paying continued attention to their balance. They're not go up there and they just can stay there, right? To me, this kind of a picture represents a smart career management. Uh, Clearly not as crazy and fearless as this picture, but you really have to manage your career. So what is getting away from the circus to our lives? What is it? It is your competency that you gain from college and early years and all the training that you take, and your passion for something, and your relevance to what you do to the world around, right? A lot of people I have over the years, I've watched that they become unrelevant to what is happening around them, and that also kind of takes takes away. So what you really need to do in these days, especially where the relevance is continuously changing, you also have to rethink your relevance. For example, when I graduated, I majored in designing motors and generators and transmission lines, and that was my major. And guess what? Computers have pretty much taken over that part. And if I had not moved on to wireless and other things, I would have become very irrelevant pretty quickly, because I'll become a slave to the computer that you plug in all the numbers and it cranks out how many watts you can generate from this design of coils and all that stuff. Okay, so this is sort of what I wanted to have as a background thought process for this presentation. So I wanted to get to the overview. What is it that I am going to cover in this presentation? First, it is the journey before the journey. So the career journey is what we're going to talk about, but there is a journey that you take to get to your career journey that I'm going to talk a little bit about that journey. And then about getting started on a job. It's an extremely important and often overlooked aspect to a job that many of us start a job and we go through many, literally years before we wake up and realize, oh, now it's been 2-3 years and I'm not getting good reviews, etc. So it's about getting started on the job and getting organized and getting your assignment execution done. We're not going to talk about the work itself, and we're going to talk about managing the career. Here's a very, very important part: the communication and interface management. There is a 360 level communication you are continuously doing when you're on the job. You're communicating with your upper management, your peers, and people who are lower than you in your level. And guess what? The person at a lower level someday is somebody who's going to be running your whole company in many cases. So do not underestimate anyone around you as to their talents and their abilities and your relationship to them, because just saying, well, this person is a lab technician and I'm a technical member of the staff, that technician was busy going to college, MBA, getting her MBA, and then before you know it, you'll be reporting to that person. And a very important part, there are some myths about performance review, what they are. Again, I'm a little bit more skewed to United States, and I'm very open to comments and people participating to give in your own thoughts. And then there comes the very important part, networking, which is what we're all doing here. And look at me, after my retirement, I'm networking across the globe, non-technically. I did a lot of traveling through my company to England and Germany and a lot of trips to China, but never really did a lot of networking. Then here is something that is so big for engineers. You know, engineers don't like doing anything other than tinkering with things for the most part. So what they do is they sit there unaware of what's happening to your company, what's happening to your area of work, say wireless in my case, for example, or any other area that you're into, optical, and they just kind of plug away, and before you know it, your work and your career becomes irrelevant. And sometimes it's too late to wake up and continuously. For example, towards the end of my career, I found a lot of my colleagues learning to do Python and other software, even though they're hardcore hardware people. They were realizing if you didn't learn some of these skills, you're going to be left behind at the station, right? You know, a long time ago, my mom would threaten us that she's going to leave us in one of the stations when we traveled to our grandparents' house, and if we misbehaved on the train. So that's exactly what's going to happen if you don't keep up with what is going on. And I'm going to try to finish with some takeaways and summarize my presentation. I'm going to briefly pause here. Is there any thoughts, comments anybody has? Or should I just proceed? Let me know. Good to go? You guys with me?
Yes, so
Oh,
please.
okay. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure everybody's on. I feel like I'm all by
Yes,
myself
we are with you.
in my family. Everybody's listening, right? Good. I still got you guys.
Yes,
Okay. So the journey before the journey. What is journey before the journey? Okay. Now, before you even start your career, what is happening? All through you are developing your personality from the time you're crawling in your crib, right? And you're establishing what is your calling. Right in the street where you're playing, you can either be an introvert doing your own thing, or you could be this little kid who's helping another kid. And you know what else? Sometimes you could be the bully in the street who takes everybody, all other kids' toys and everything, and doesn't let anybody play. You could be any one of those things. And as you're doing all those things, you're developing your talents, you are learning to play music, maybe you're learning to play sports, and as well as your career related stuff like learning to do math and science and history and all that good stuff. Now, right along there, your family is putting values into you. You are taking in these family values. You don't even know the word family values, but they're all getting into your brain, right? And here is a very important part. And I wanted to say a little bit about this because I grew up just at the edge of, I wouldn't say poverty, but literally at the edge of barely able to provide for the family kind of situation to lower middle class. I mean, literally by 20th of the month or 25th of the month, money is dried down in my house. And if you tear your sandals, you're not getting another sandal until money gets settles down next month and you got your nice, good old safety pin holding your sandal together. And very tight finances. There is nothing extra available in the family to buy anything other than, I always have to remind myself my entire belongings fitted in one, what they used to call almari, right? In India, one shelf of about 3 feet wide and 2 feet high. My entire content of my growing up, and now my son grew up with a full room full of stuff. So you take all this, and where do you go with that is you go to school. And in the school, you get your academic activities, you have your sports, you have your friendship. That's where you learn to network and form friendships. And here is something every summer, there is lots of ways to spend summer, and it's totally up to individual. And how you spend your summer varies from person to person. One summer, my brother and I created a replica of moon landing, the year that they landed on the moon in 1969. That is an experience that I think had a phenomenal impact on the rest of my life. Then you go to college, and what do you have? You have your college experience. You take a lot of this, and what you do is you basically enhance these experiences into more friendships, more networks. And again, in college, your summer internships take on even bigger meaning because they can actually land you on your job. So that's kind of how you land on your first job when you graduate. Okay. And what happens in this entire journey before the journey is you can go through hardship, you can go through trauma. I was so deathly ill in my third year of engineering. It's a whole another presentation, but I almost, and my engineering career almost ended in my third year when just a month before final exams, I felt very, very ill. I got help from Ayurvedic treatment, and that's how I owe my whole life to. So all these things, these trauma and hardships also enhance all of your journey when you arrive at the job. Of course, they are going to be there continuing to impact. So you're at the job, you graduated, and you're ready to start your career. Now, what is the first thing? This is why I put this in big bold letters. You are in charge of your career. Nobody ever let you allow you, no, never ever let anybody allow you to think anybody else is in charge of your career. Not your parents, not your boss, not anybody else. You are going to be in the driver's seat of a career. So one of the first thing you do is, we talked about the mentoring program and the mentoring and role model. Now, there is an interesting topic here that I recently am getting interested in. What someday I'll make a presentation on, is mentor versus a sponsor. So it's very important to get to know what is a mentor and what is a sponsor, and when do you need a mentor, when do you need a sponsor, and when do you need both. And now, one of the things I highly recommend when you start your career is, right off the bat, you should start an accomplishment journal. Okay, this is something I had not done in the early years, obviously, but eventually I started doing this almost on a weekly, no less than a weekly, no more than a weekly basis. uh, Document what is happening in your career. Who did you meet, and who sent you an email giving you kudos? What kind of a thing that you did that didn't go very well, that you scratch your head, why did I do that? That's not something I want to repeat again. And I can tell you, I had about 1,000 of those, which is what made me who I am today. My big problem was I didn't differentiate between how to communicate with higher ups in the company versus immediate boss versus peers. Sometimes I got them all mixed up and I got into a lot of trouble. And start, I had a list. I tell all my people who reported to me to form a little list called the Attaboy, Attagirl list, almost from day one. Anytime you get kudos, anything nice, to somebody says, you think you're going to remember this at performance review, but you're not. Let me tell you, a lot of times you don't remember that you stepped up and helped it with a big disaster in your company. And a whole bunch of people said, oh, that's Chitra. That was amazing work. We couldn't have survived without you. But throw it in a bin, throw it in a folder, save it somewhere. Do not let that go. And then here is a very important one. You have to start from the beginning. It's not about who you think you are, how you are, that you are a kind person, or you are very active, you are very, what do you call get things done kind of a person. What matters is perception, how you're perceived. Sometimes, it is very difficult for us to acknowledge this. And somehow or the other, you get to know how people perceive. Maybe a little well-meaning friend would come and tell you, you got to stop doing that because the boss, is not very thrilled. Say, for example, you always have a habit of surprising the boss in front of boss's boss. Well, that's a big no-no in many companies, by the way. So you may be unaware of it, and the boss may not want to tell you until the day comes, then he or she is telling you, okay, it's your last day. So you have to learn how you're being perceived, however you do it. And look for opportunities. You know what? Opportunities don't knock on the door sometimes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And you will have to kind of be very aware. And sometimes you may jump on an opportunity without even knowing you're jumping on an opportunity. My biggest break in wireless actually came at 5:30 one day, when I saw the hardware people and the software people fighting like dogs and cats in the labs, because they didn't see eye to eye to solve problems by working together. Software people always thought the hardware is all full of crap, and hardware people always thought software people never knew how to write code, and it was always a clash. So I one day I saw all this, and I knew I was a kind of a software hardware person, so I thought I could help. So I told my boss, who I ran into at 5:30 on my way out, and I said, hey, do you mind taking me off of this assignment? Put me as this coordinator person, that I wanted to help solve all these problems as an in-between person that literally changed that basically charted the future of my career. And then pay close attention to the future of what is happening. We're going to talk about more of that. And you kind of have to leave the comfort zone when times call for it. This is an example of Chitra Kasturi, my friend that I talked to you about. I know between us, I also got an offer once, and my big boss asked me if I could relocate to Hong Kong for a brief period of time. And I just went like, no, I'm not going anywhere. That was my comfort zone. Unfortunately, I stayed there. Well, fortunately for me, because that was aligned to my personal definition of success. Whereas Chitra dropped everything and got on a plane, went to India with one suitcase, and not to come back for, I don't know, months, or I think even years. It might have been 2 years before she returned to the United States for good. So you also have to be willing to make that sacrifice and leave your comfort zone and learn when to go beyond the call of duty. And of course comes, managing. Here is a very, very big pet peeve of mine, is joining the complainers club. It's very easy to do. You sometimes get sucked into it. You are at a coffee pot station, and somebody's complaining about another boss, and you also had some issues with that person, and you join. But you know something? That person will remember that you complained, and they may actually use it against you. So it's very, very, you have to really be very aware. If you're going to join a complainers chorus, is it really important to do that, or you have to be very diplomatic and leave the space and walk away? And most importantly, enjoy your work, which is what I was trying to do my presentation earlier, but which didn't quite go well. But important thing is enjoying your work too, and arrange to move around and take a different job if you don't enjoy your work. I am very, very fortunate and feel very blessed that I don't recall a day that I didn't jump out of bed and got in the car and went to work, no matter how horrible the day before was, except probably the first year of my son, that I had to leave him at home and go to work. It was really very hard to leave a child that is evolving every day to go to work. So this is the starting part of it. And the first thing, one of the next thing you do now that you started your job, you have to get organized. You have to get organized in many ways, because if you sometimes you have a very organized boss, and sometimes you have a very disorganized boss. And when you have a very organized boss, you better get organized, because that boss is not going to be seeing you in the best of light. And if you have a very disorganized boss, get very organized, because you know what? That boss is going to count on you to be the organized person in the group and give you a lot of good assignments. And next thing you know, you will be bossing your current boss one day. You have to be very responsive. There is nothing worse than not hearing from somebody, hey, I need that software package that you said would be ready today. Well, the package is not ready. You're busy working on it. But important thing is to respond and say, yeah, I got you. I heard you. I'm going to get ready. This is something so many people miss. It's a one-liner, especially with emails. Just respond. Keep the people around you running their life and not stop because there's something important that you owe them. And setting priorities in all the directions. Work is going to be consuming for many of us, right? Even volunteer work is for me sometimes gets very confusing. So you have to declare what is your priority. Maybe on the day my son is on a play, it is my priority. Boss's priority, or someone that you reports to you as having a very maybe a hardship at home, and that could be the priority. And your commitment to caring about people could be very critical. And time. I'm not very good at this. I swear to you, I have been trying to do time management all my life, and I'm still struggling with it. All day yesterday morning, I just sat there recovering from my mom's visit, and I didn't do anything about the presentation. Between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., I added all this animation. And processing information, gathering, sharing. I mean, that's going to be a very big part of your life. And you kind of have to get this, because there's nothing more important than an engineer who looks put together, when they get up in front of people and present. When you get up there and present your work, or some big finding, or a big problem analysis, how well you have it together matters a lot. So my recommendation is, if you have to work an entire weekend sometimes, if you have a big deal presentation, put a lot into it so that you have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. That's incredibly important. Flexibility, a big part of many jobs. Time and time again, I ran into people who are so inflexible. This is what I want to do. Towards the end, for example, we had to manage both CDMA products with Verizon and even some analog very, very late in the CDMA days. We had to support all those products. And then there is LTE coming in. And all these said are these bunch of people who are like, I want to work on LTE. I want to work on, put me on LTE. Well, if everybody in the group works on LTE, Verizon is going to kick us out of their network because their CDMA network is what is serving the community. So the flexibility and understanding when you need to be flexible, important. But you know what? Women, we're very good at all these things. So just a little plug. I'm sorry, Deepak, but I had to do this little plug. And understanding the work-life balance. It's something every one of us struggle. I think in some cases, women struggle with this more than men. There are times that, I remember one day I had to make a big presentation to my big boss on a algorithm that I worked on. And I had to do it. My son was running 102 fever the night before. And you know what I did? I got up at 3 a.m. I got dressed and I got ready. I woke up my husband and I said, well, you're in charge of the sick child. I am going to work. And that day I had to make that call as to my priority. Okay, I am going into the communication and interface management, which was a very, very bad aspect for personally for me, that I had to learn a lot. I had to make you're talking about these circus people making those adjustments. I had to do a lot of it. And it's a perception. You can declare you are a great communicator. You guys all who listen to me, you're the one who has to tell me I'm a good communicator or not. For me to tell you I did a great presentation is almost meaningless, right? Uh, find opportunities to present. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm not good at presenting. No, everybody is good at presenting. Learn, take opportunities, join Toastmasters Club, whatever you have to. Presentation is going to be key to many, many engineering careers. Well, all of us in engineering, no matter, except maybe the CEO, everybody has a boss, right? And you got to align with the boss. Now, you can challenge the boss. You don't have to agree with everything the boss does, but that has nothing to do with aligning with the boss, okay? So it's very important to understand what does aligning means, and aligning with the boss isn't necessarily mean you're surrendering 100% and the boss does all the wacky things and you're 100% with it. So that's how you fully align and you learn and get that power to be able to give feedback even to the boss, right? And as I mentioned to you before, do not underestimate peers, because you don't know the impact they will have on their on your career. You know, they long time ago in my company, somebody drew a diagram of how people evolved in their careers. You can kind of see, put arrows, people who work together, even though they separated, they will keep coming back together in their future positions and companies. So one of our ex-boss, Kevin Lovren, who joined Jabil, practically half of the people that left the company when I left, they're all working for Kevin in that other company. And then learn cultural communication, especially across the ocean. I had a lot of learning to do when I started working with China teams, because there is a strong culture there of respect, and you kind of have to respect the engineers. They don't speak up as much as they do in the United States. So you have to learn how to get them to express, kind of their concerns they have about the product, right? And yeah, this is a big part of going to be your career. You have to manage some challenging interfaces. I had about 17 bosses over the years. And I would probably say I'm very, very blessed that literally every one of them were amazing. But at one point, I did get a boss who was pretty me, I am the greatest kind of a person. you know what I did? I got a nice advice from another ex-boss that I had who worked a lot with this person. And I went to work with this new plan. So what I would do, if I had the most brilliant idea, I would go up to his room, close the door, and sit down and say, a few weeks ago you said this, you had this great idea. Well, I followed up on it, and I think this is what we could do. I mean, this is a little secret between us, but that's that's how I manage this person, because he's the boss and wants to have a lot of credit for everybody's work. So I gave a lot of credit because I could get things done. Um, and this communicating and managing all your interfaces, it's going to pay very, very big in your career. I promise you. So don't let, like this picture shows, don't let your career hit you over in your head, right? That is that part. So I'm going to go into performance review. Now, I do want to do a time check, ladies. How am I doing?
We have another 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Presentation and Q&A.
Okay. All right. Let me get that going for quick. And I wanted to go this, as I mentioned before, performance review is not anybody's business but yours. You have to prepare for it, and every day of your work, think about what you're doing and how that comes into your performance review. You have to take full ownership. You're in charge. If you happen to be working for someone who doesn't give take the time to give you the review, you insist on getting your review. Some bosses in my company would even get away not even doing it and just kind of walking up to your room sometime and say, oh, here's your salary raise. Oh, how did I do? Oh, you did fine. No, you did fine. It's not a performance review. You have to drag these people down, sit down. Yeah, I want to know everything, the good and the bad, and what I need to fix. So don't ever hesitate to get the feedback, however hurtful it could be. It's extremely important to, there is more value in confronting some things that you're not doing right and demonstrating that you can fix it. Yes, is more powerful than not even have the problem in the first place. Let me tell you, I had several of those. And it's extremely important to focus on the areas of improvement, as much as it is not very comfortable for many of us. You really have to do that. And I kind of have put together a do's and the don'ts performance review checklist. So these are all something that I'm going to quickly go through. You got to get feedback from many people. This is another one that's very bad with engineers. Engineers don't like processes of the HR, right? We don't want to pay attention to all this, but you really got to pay attention to the processes that's going on in the company. And keep track of all your past reviews and see how you evolve in your performance. I suggest people to walk into their reviews fully prepared. For example, to say, hey, you gave me this feedback a couple of years ago, and I want to be sure that I did work on fixing all these, and I want your feedback on confirming that I fixed them. So here are some, don'ts that I have, sort of like rushed review. Don't schedule a meeting close to the review headline and things like that. And, and then, I kind of, once I did this, I messed up and I set up a performance review right the day after. That review was not going very well because whatever happened the day before was very fresh in my boss's mind. And then I also suggest people to have like a little cheat sheet of at the time of the review, bring something to write, turn off your devices, which is very important for these days for you guys. And thank the boss. It's not all the boss is not some sadhu, some priest or a renounced person. They are looking for some kudos too. And most important one is the willingness to receive the feedback and bring up your expectations. Don't feel shy at the same time. And here are some don'ts. And don't be in a rush. Don't set up another schedule of something that you're going to go to a performance, music performance right after this. So no, I gotta go. Don't get in. That's not a time to get into confrontation. Getting defensive. That's not the time to be getting defensive. If you think you were unfairly treated, there is ways to deal with that later on. And this is definitely not the time to kind of on a personal level tell the boss. I have been attacked many times by my people. I've had one person in my group. I did performance review for 3 hours. I gave this guy all the time he wanted, and he was pretty brutal on me. But needless to say, he didn't work for me for too long. Bring up. Do not ever compare. Your performance review is about you and what you did and what you should fix and how you move on. And this is not the time to be talking about others. Even if you have a job lined up, and even if you kind of mentally decided, this is not a light lineup for me, this is not a good match for me, I am moving on, not the time to be bringing those things up. So I wanted to kind of, networking, I could almost skip this slide for you guys because you guys are amazing with the IEEE, how much networking you do. You guys are going to be, you're fantastic, to tell you the truth. But I just wanted to make some quick points. Even in a networking, don't just kind of walk off into some good networking thing. Prepare a little bit, and while you're networking, ask a lot of questions of other people. Get to know who they are and what they do, and it doesn't even hurt to take some notes and, hey, let me jot that down because someday I might come to you to talk to you about it. You have to listen actively, not just get buried in a lot of noise all around you. What is being a giver? Being a giver is being a generous. Like if you and that person had something in common and you got some information, they say, oh, I would love to know about that product or something that you use, that software package or something. Be very generous about sharing. That thing is going to, there's nothing worse than thinking if you give away, everything will go away. It's not going to go away. You have to get around, make sure you're not stuck with one person in a network session. It's sometimes easy to do, and you have to be yourself. And you also have to set a limit, of selling yourself. There's too much selling in a networking session that will kind of get you in a bad rap, and people may not want to reach out to you later on. And probably the most important final point is to follow up. So many of us, I don't know, some of you may relate to this, that we say, yeah, I'm going to get back to you about that. Well, guess what? 20 years go by, you haven't gotten back. I may have a couple like that. So you really kind of have to keep all these aspects in your, now in networking. Corporate awareness. This is a very, very important. It's much more important than when I first started and worked for the first 20 years of my job. There was never a need to have a corporate awareness. You kind of went into big companies or something and you're staying there. A lot of us are very cozy, comfortable, working in the same jobs years and years, which is what it may sound like my career. But wireless was changing so much that I never got bored. So what is corporate awareness, right? It is, you have to take off the blinders and just work. You have to know, where is your company going? Not just what they tell you how they're doing, but also go out there in the internet and press conferences and press releases. Compare notes on what they tell you their company is doing and how they're doing and what they're doing and what they plan to do, and compare it with what they tell the world they're doing. Okay, and how the world perceives them, articles about your company by other major technical reviews. So that's what's very important in many ways to get to know where your company is headed. Identify and connect with those who know. This is not about gossiping, but make sure you have the right connection of people in your company that you network with, and you listen and you learn. For example, for the last couple of years of my job, 2016 through 18, we knew we were going down fast. Nokia bought our company and things were not looking good. In every corner, everywhere you turn, things were, there were not good signs, for example. So that was a time for some people to say, you know what, I'm going to move on. I'm going to find my niche. in my case, for example, I had a kind of a deadline in my head that I wanted to retire when I'm still healthy, because I really, really want to immerse myself in social causes. So I said, I had this motto that I even wrote it on my board in my office. That said, when they don't need me, I don't need them. So that kind of became a cute little line in my organization. So when they don't need me, I don't need them. I worked in that mode towards the end and said, I'll be here even till the last day that they tell me they don't need me, then I'm going to move on. And if it goes for too long, and I'm going to leave. And attend the business meetings. It's very difficult for engineers to take interest in the business, but you should. We all should. I was guilty of this in the early days, but eventually I started to do it. And know your competition, not your competition as somebody who will take your job or your promotion, but it's all your company's competition. Who is dead competition for my company, Nokia? We, time and time again, we thought we knew the competition. For example, Nortel was our competition in the early days. We thought Nortel was going to kill us, but guess what? Nortel died right along with us. So there was all this, you have to set aside some time in your week to get familiar with and get into where you get your information. But at the same time, when you do all this, you also have to be aware of the managing the obsession versus awareness, right? I have come across people who are so consumed with the company. Every corner in the building, you find them chatting with somebody about, they do this, and they had this, they announced this, and that is stupid what the company is doing. It's not about the obsession. It's a healthy awareness is what you need about your company. So, this is what I wanted to tell you. Well, you could be writing your code and busy doing your job and your building is on fire. And that happens in some companies. And guess what? By the time you get out of the fire, other people have already found shelter where you also would have liked to have gone in shelter, which is other jobs. All right. So that brings me to my 10 takeaways. I put this list right off because I wanted to just show you it's kind of a summary of all the things that we talked about. You want to align, we talked about aligning with your management, take risks in your job, which is getting out of the comfort zone. And you all at the same time following your passion, right? You have to be detail oriented. Engineers have to have the facts straight. And communication, develop clear communication skills. Honestly, this is something I'm still working on, going from the corporate world. Now, when I work with the Red Cross, little by little, they're also giving me significant responsible positions where I'm also learning how to communicate where I don't earn an income, how to communicate without the authority to other people. And so it's a whole new learning experience for me to learn to communicate as a volunteer. Be friendly and helpful to people, right? And stay on your career path. Don't just let yourself wander off into something, and have a great sense of humor as you go through. I think this is one of the biggest things in my organization, we used to do a lot of practical jokes and things like that. So in each one of these, there is a but. What is the but? On the first one, look out for yourself, but at the same time, you have to cooperate. You have to give credit. You better do, and you have to be a team player. And you have to have a work-life balance. But when it comes to a big payoff, you may be asked to make a personal sacrifice. When 9/11 happened, I was called in and I was asked to be the lead for our company's recovery in downtown New York City. For the next 1.5 months, I didn't have any work in my company. All I did was 9/11 recovery. That means I was on call 24/7. Even at every night, even every 3 hours, I set up my clock to find out if they need something, and I have to arrange for that wire or cable or that product or that filter to get to downtown New York City. And I think it's a most life-changing experience of my entire life. Aligning with the management, but do not hold back your ideas, your opinions, and your concerns in the right way. Take risks as long as it is well thought through, right? Follow your passion, but at the same time, stay relevant. If you love to do the machine design, I would have been still sitting there somewhere. I would not have a career that I did with wireless. You have to be detail oriented, but it is very easy for engineers to get this analysis paralysis title. Communicate very, very clearly. I can't tell you, I could sit here tell you all day today, if there's one message I can give you, is communicate clearly, communicate clearly. But at the same time, you have to know when less is more. I had a big reputation for this because I like to give more information. As you can tell, I could like to talk and I would get into trouble. And you have to be friendly and helpful, and also have to respect your privacy of people. I had sometimes as much as 30, 40 people working for me, but they were all different people. There was somebody who wouldn't want anybody in the group to know anything that happened once they leave the building in their personal life. There are others, if their kid had a 100 fever, then you would get to know. If they fell off the balcony, you would get to know. You have to weigh who you cross that privacy line with. That's a very important thing to learn, not to make, because these very private people, they are so tight that you step over, it's not going to go very well for them. You have to stay your career plan. You know your ambitions and you want to work on LTE, but if you don't get that CDMA working, you're not going to be viewed very well. So I had some trouble with some of those people, as I mentioned, and you have to have a good sense of humor, but at the same time, humor sometimes can cross a line, can offend somebody. So you kind of have to work that. So I'm known for humor in my group. So this is my lab before I left. These are some of the guys who worked for me, and my company had this unbelievably absurd obsession that they wanted us to squeeze into smaller lab spaces, just like their other locations in the country, like in Texas, and said there is a square footage per person that you cannot deviate. And so this lab, half of this lab is empty. Okay, but these people all have to squeeze into a small 8x8 square meter space per person or some craziness. We were all very, very upset. We were pissed off. So what I did, we took this picture. I took this picture, 4 of my guys, and make sure you notice the summer intern. Summer intern gets to sit under the damn bench. We took this picture, and you know what I did? I posted this. Hey, Nokia, we are ahead of your recommendations. Now we can put 4 people in the space of 1 person, and I posted it in my company blog. I mean, you could consider that suicidal in some cases, would be the last day of your job. Interestingly, I had a lot of even executive people who enjoyed this little blog post that I put in, because we spoke up against it. So we get to our summary. Define your career and move forward. And you have to have a plan where your career is going every step of the way. And as we talked about that circus, getting back to the circus, make your adjustment continuously, or all 5 people are going to fall off of that staircase. And make the most of all the tools and opportunities we talked about. And redefine your goals and expertise as interests evolve, whether your interest evolves or other interests evolve. Keep making adjustments. Watch your career thrive. And I want to summarize everything we talked about into 4 clouds. And they sometimes say pillars. I use clouds because I find pillars to be too stiff. Okay, so I'm using clouds because it's a little bit spongy and cottony, and you should be able to sort of manipulate them or adjust them as time goes on. So the alignment to what is happening is important, the balance is important, and most importantly, the full awareness of where your career is going, where your company is going. All those things are important. In my closing remarks, think of all the things that go into building a big structure, right? And building a career is very similar. You have glass, you have concrete, you have everything, and all that goes in. And assignment execution is like just stacking bricks, right? In the old days, they just put one brick on top of each other, put the mortar and put together. And, sure, they could have built some of the biggest buildings in the world like that. And it would have been fine, but would anybody want to go there and work there or live there? So you really have to make it very meaningful. So here is a building, right? Can you imagine how much aesthetics went into this building? And look at how unbelievably stunning this building is. And here is another building. So the difference is this is a functional building. This is a completely non-functional building, both of them in New York, not too far apart. But even this building is highly admired because of it's a beautiful architecture. So what I want to leave you with is that this is what you have to do. You have to architect your career. That's my final word. And let's see, where do I go from here? Am I still here? Oh, good. Now, I don't know how to get my. All right. So what do stop presentation? Let's see. How do I stop my presentation?
You should see a small.
Oh, stop sharing. Oh my God. I made the presentation. I lost myself. All right, guys. Okay. I just went straight, and usually, you know what, in a real presentation, I'm going back and forth, and I didn't get to do that. I apologize, but there you have it. I'm a little rusty, so I had to sort of wing it.
That was perfect and wonderful. It's like several decades of golden wisdom all handed to us in a plate.
Right? I know. I wish I had somebody give me all this. I wouldn't have gotten into so much trouble, When I was in elementary school, they always found me on top of a tree, and I got into so much trouble. And I thought I would never do that as an adult, but even when I went to work, I kind of did the same thing, like climbing on a tree, and I got into trouble. And these are all my learning experience from my job. Most of them were learned by making mistakes. So that's what I wanted to transfer to you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Audience, our participants, meanwhile, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to raise your hand and we can bring you up on stage to chat with our guests and panelists. That was awesome. What stood out for me from this presentation was, of course, the way you ended it. Humor is very, very important to handle a lot of stressful situations. And how important it is to stay relevant, not only with technological advancements in such a fast moving world, but also with what's happening with your company, staying relevant in the corporate and business aspect as well. I love the idea of an accomplishment journal and the Attaboy Girl list. And also,
I hope you guys all do it.
I'm looking forward to doing that. And also,
thank you.
Your attitude towards humanitarian efforts while still, focusing on your career and technological advancements.
Yeah, that's important. I didn't mention it because I often forget it. For 25 years while I was working, I ran a little program, Special Olympics, which is for disabled people, mentally challenged, developmentally challenged people. I ran a little table tennis program where every week we get together and I taught them table tennis in the local disabled program center. I think it's one of the most meaningful things that I did. I was able to carve out just 1 hour once a week and taught them how to play ping pong.
It's amazing. And I'm sure that has brought a lot of difference in their lives.
It was amazing. I got more out of it than they did. Anybody else? Anybody has any other comments from your own experience? I'm always a learner. I'm always a learner myself, too.
Anybody on stage would like to say anything? We have a lot of comments from our participants. Appreciate your message, sharing your personal experience. That's wonderful. I have a question. You spoke about how it's important to understand how we are perceived. Would
Yes.
you have any handy tips on how we can perceive how we are perceived?
Right. I think that is where it's a kind of a two-prong, thing. For example, maybe I'll give it to you as an example. I had that's where your good friends come in. You have trusted people that would come in to help you. Uh, for example, I definitely had in the beginning of my career, coming from Tamil Nadu with our culture, I will be very honest with you. We are not used to thanking people. Okay, we grew up not thanking people because that's just not part of your mom hands you a cookie, you don't say thank you mama. You don't do that in our culture, right? When you land here, every little thing people thank other people. So I worked in a company where I would go again and again, get my get some things done quickly instead of standing in the line. Hey, I need this print so quickly right away, and the guy would print it and I'll run off to my desk and just walk off. After about 10 times, one day the guy held back the drawing and he said, this time, would you say thank you when I give you this? I mean, it's that blunt, right? Now, I wish I had it from somebody else. I had learned it from somebody else. So one of the ways is to really take somebody in confidence and ask them, hey, is there anything I'm doing that's annoying other people that you could tell me that I should fix? You see what I'm saying? I don't think it's wrong. I think it's a big stretch for to ask somebody, tell me how stupid am I? But that's okay. I think what you learn from it and move on is going to be more valuable to you. Then there is absolutely nothing wrong in point blank asking people, even asking the manager. I've asked managers about that, and sometimes even only when I ask, I got a very shy boss. She would never give harsh feedback. So and I had to really go the extra mile and ask, hey Liz, tell me something. You keep telling me all the wonderful things about me. Tell me something I got to fix. And slowly she just kind of pulls herself together and she says, sometimes you tell me that something is working before it is really, really working. You should really take some more time to make sure it's working. I said, oh, okay, I got that. So you really should find ways to do that. Yes, you should know how you're perceived. Mhm.
That's nice. Yeah, I think initiate and slowly it becomes a
Uh,
habit.
Ramnik has a question.
Yes, Ramnik. Are we able to bring Ramnik onto stage or?
Yeah, am I audible?
Hey,
Yes.
we can hear you. Hello, Ramnik.
Hello, good day, Chitra ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's really great to have you here. Thank you so much to IEEE Art and We committee for organizing such wonderful, insightful
Yeah.
presentation and session of you, ma'am. Always I listen you, I always get some new learning every time, which I can implement right away in my organization as a YP. I have a short query for you, ma'am. It's very often like when a student member or a recent graduate member from undergrad school, they get into industry and they find it very difficult when a manager shouts on them on any mistake. And it's very like it. I faced this in my last organization when I got undergrad from my school, and it was like, have I did something wrong? Why my manager is
Mm-hmm.
shouting at me? Have I did
Mm-hmm.
say something wrong to my customer? What's the issue coming up? So I want to know from you, from your personal experience, what are the
Mm-hmm.
different tips you would like to share to a recent YP who has just joined the industry for eliminating all these mental barriers
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
to increase the, I would say, emotional intelligence. That's very much important. That's what you highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is, let me see if I understood it correctly, is that you joined new employee and you have a kind of a what do you call easy to lose the temper, somewhat of a temperamental manager, right? Because managers are not supposed to do that, but you have a manager who loses the cool very quickly. Is that what we're dealing with?
Yes,
They
yes,
they
ma'am.
kind of get a little hard on the student because they have been around a long time. They think they are very highly capable. Everything they think is right or something like that, right? That's what it is. So I think one of the things that I actually had a boss like that. I did. One boss who I worked for very briefly. I'm very, very good friends with him right now, even after retirement. But he once called me in and he chewed my ass off. I mean, he just blasted me for something I didn't even do. I had nothing to do with. I had to, in the end, tell him, well, I think you got the wrong person in your office to yell at because it's that other person who did that project. So what I am trying to say is what you have to do is this is where you got to get to know the person. There are two components to managing something like this. One, you have to get to know that this person has that temperament, is like that, right? That's important. That awareness has to be there, knowing they can lose their cool. That second one is you have to get your act together. So the hardest part is when you don't have your act together and you end up, deserving some level of disciplining, but that doesn't have to be rude, but it should be a disciplining. Let's say, well, you're Chitra, you're not supposed to bring that up at this executive meeting. You should have come and talked to me. A good boss, that's what they would say, right? A good boss would call me in and say, hey, I didn't appreciate you brought that up at the executive meeting yesterday. If you had that concern, you should have knocked on my door and talked to me about it. It was a huge comment for me to learn from. And from then on, I made a dramatic change in my career where if I have something, I would go to my boss. Finding a time when they are, and they're in good mood and work with. So I might have a very controversial comment on this. I would say, try to find a friendly path to make friends with this person. It sounds really crazy. When somebody has a temper and you make friends with them in some way or the other, being very cheerful, when they go home on a weekend, you come home first thing, you go a big smile on your face and you go in there, hey, how was your weekend? Did you have a nice time? Did you have, how is your kids doing? What I found is these people who are very short-tempered, when I make friends with them, they can be short-tempered at me. I don't even know if this makes any sense to you guys, but what I would find is somebody would come and tell me, oh, that manager was so awful. I hated it working for this person, blah, blah, blah. I said, I would have never had any problem because I kind of detected this person is a very, very short-tempered person early on and found the opportunity. That's why the friendship has to be the foundation, even at work. You don't have to cross the privacy barrier to get to know, hey, what's happening? What's your wife doing? What's your child doing? That's not the part I'm talking about. Friendship is getting to know, hey, what is your interest? Hey, what do you do for hobbies? It's just letting them open up to you, be your buddy. That would smooth it out. I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes some of these people are pretty brutal that you may have to move on. It's not that uncommon to advise and say, well, you got to pack up. And if your two personalities clash so much, you may have to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chitra ma'am. It was actually one of the moments which I faced in my past organization. And
Right.
it was evening, and I was like, oh my goodness, my Saturday, Sunday are now nightmare. I can't even
No,
think
you
of
shouldn't. You shouldn't lose yourself. You shouldn't be stressed over this. You got to turn it around and see what can you do. How can you manage it? It's called managing the manager. That's what I call it. Managing the manager. I have a whole segment on it, but because of time, I didn't put that in there.
Coming soon. And perhaps for temperamental bosses, another tip would be to always appreciate in public and advice or feedback in person, in a private
They're
meeting.
still good bosses. They could still be good people for your career. The people who would help you with your career come in all shapes and sizes and personalities. So they don't have to be nice people to help you with your career. You get your career going and you can move on and be selfish. let them stew in their personality issue.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Chitra ma'am.
All right. Any other comments? Anybody else sharing any other personal experience? Happy to, I'm not at all without having done crazy things and learning from them.
We have a comment from Ajay Poddar who says, very good talk. I think
Oh, Ajay is here. He's hiding somewhere. Ajay. Yes, he said he will join today. I don't know what to hear. But some of my, as a matter of fact, many managers gave me help over the years. There is something, if you have one more thing, you know what? I did want to share one other item. Let me give, I may give this to you guys. Let me see. I am going to share this. Let me do another share, and I'm going to show this, and I'm also going to give you guys, send you a copy of this. Let's see, shall I share, and I am going to, okay, share this. Let's see if you guys can see this. All right, do you guys see this?
yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, it's called Unwritten Rules of the Game. Okay, so this is 2 pages of just one-liners. Now, they are pretty amazing. And how did I collect these? These are all one-liners I collected from my managers, directors, my bosses, my colleagues, and anybody I could get stuff from. So I put it all together in 2 pages, and I used to, in my live presentation of this particular talk, what I would do is I'll make a 2-sided printout of this, and I will hand them out at the end of the talk. So I am happy to send it to you, and everybody can have a copy of it. There is really nothing big other than just lots of little one-liners that you can print out in 2 pages and put it in front of you in your house, on your refrigerator, wherever, and look at it whenever you feel like.
That's
So
awesome. I'm
I
sure
could do that.
all of us will have a little
Yeah,
take-home
there is really
so
good stuff in there. So don't give your supervisor problems, give solutions. So just a lot of good, good information. So I will send a copy of this in the email to you.
That'll be great.
Right, I'll do that. Everybody gets a little take-home gift. That's my take-home gift for career
Yes.
management.
That'll be great. Okay, so we have a small take-home gift for you from our side.
Very nice.
There you go. That's a little virtual
Whoa, that's my face and everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Awesome.
for sharing all those wisdom and for your time early in the morning. And I'm sure all of us, all of the participants joining here are taking home a lot of handy tips, like Ramneet said, which they can implement right away at their work.
Yeah, things to think about, right? And I just want to let you guys know, this is my passion to share. And at the future, if you have another environment where a new set of people want to listen to me, I'm even more than happy to even present again. So it's not out of the ordinary. If you have a specific group or something like that, I mean, this talk is something that I don't have to prepare, so I could just present off the cuff. And I'm more than happy to give this. And I'm working on some of the other topics I'm doing some research on how women in engineering progressed in different countries in the world. I am really personally looking forward. I haven't completed it, but I am trying to compare like a Muslim countries versus India versus United States and European countries. See how, where engineering started and how it progressed, and trying to make some sense out of the cultures and how engineers took over, women engineers took over the world. So that's my future topic of research. Yeah, in Australia.
Really look forward to listening to
right.
that. We do have, Sherry says Australia too. Yep.
Yes.
And We have a question from Pooja. Pooja, do you want to unmute and ask? Oh, wait.
Yes, sure, Ashmira. Thank you. Thank you, Chitra ma'am, for the wonderful session. It was really amazing. So I have a question like how to deal if we are performing better than senior engineers, especially in the career ladder, because even though we work so hard, like our manager doesn't recognize it because there is someone who's already a senior, but in a real cause, we perform better than them. So how do we deal it? So could you please share some suggestions or some ideas?
Interesting question. You know, the important thing is that really a lot of what you need to do is to document your work very well. A lot of times we shy away from it. For example, let's say there is a meeting where everybody is there, your boss, your senior person, and everybody. You have the idea that in that meeting, everybody's struggling with trying to figure out something. Oh no, how are we going to get this right? And you have the idea, and you come out with that idea. And guess what? Right there in the meeting, you gave your idea away. And these are all the situations where you would probably find the senior person in some way or another is kind of rope himself or herself into this to take some credit, for example. So one of the ways that in this day and age of email, what I advise a lot of people is if you ever have ideas, document it very politely, even if you have said it and it's documented that you said it, but it's not enough. So for example, if I gave an idea that I think we should do this, we should test this version of the software first on this hardware before we do this. You know, let's say I said that, and that was well received and the big thing. Right after the meeting, without wasting any time, when you get back to your desk, I would write an email saying, hey, I just want to reiterate what I mentioned in the meeting about the idea that I had, and very polite, but at the same time, taking full credit for what you came out with, and so on. So the most you could do under those circumstances, you have to establish your so-called accomplishment list in real documentation and get this. And there are cases when you hit that ceiling of somebody is more senior and you are never given that ability to go further, you really may not have a lot of options other than moving on to, because when you do this, when you write about it and go on, and your personality, as I said, you know, networking and getting to know people, somebody else would have something for you that you go around that person, and maybe someday you will be the boss of that senior person. And I've seen it happening around me all the time. So what is important in a nutshell is you need to document credit for what you do in a nice way, in a pleasant but selfish way. I hate to say it, but it is a selfish way to document that you're the one who came up with that idea in that meeting.
Yes, sure, ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I don't, you know, there are going to be difficult situations. I'm not going to deny that are going to be very difficult to get past. And I'm pretty sure, having grown up in that culture, there's a little bit more of it than around here too.
Sure.
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you, Chitra ma'am, for that.
Yeah, I will also ponder on some of these questions myself, you know, further down and think about more, because I just have a little bit of an answer, but.
All right. Thank you so much. And we again look forward to hosting you another time. I'm also mindful of the time. And before we, take a closing picture, get ready with your cameras, everybody who can. I want to make a small announcement. As Amy and Mr. Deepak were mentioning. So this was an initiative which was born in our SYWL last year. Sherry is here. Hi, Sherry, from the little group discussion we had. And the Region 10 WIE team is very proud to announce this mentorship initiative called Mentor Her. We are open for applications for mentees. If anybody is interested in volunteering as a mentor as well, do write into us. And we are also preparing some nice resources which mentees and mentors can work together with. And we hope to bring this forward as a full-fledged program
Very nice.
soon after this. So stay tuned and do sign up. And of course, await our next session with another topic on professional development. Let's take a quick group picture before we end the session. Once again, thanks everyone for joining us. And I hope you
Thank
had
you for the opportunity.
Hey, Deepak, are you there? Okay, thank you.
There's Deepak. We got him.
Okay.
have the entire title.
Okay, let's take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Chitra,
Thank
Chitra,
you,
it was a
everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chitra.
Deepak, I want to hear from the expert.
This was a great session, and it came out of your 4 decades of experience. So I really appreciate. There are so many practical tips for all of us. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. You take what you get from me and other people and what you learn, and it's like a smorgasbord, you put it together, and some of what I said would work for you and some may not, and you kind of march forward. But more important part is that you have to manage a career. Career does not just manage just because you are a great, brilliant engineer. Yeah,
You should take a session for the boss where you said that fully aligned, but learn to challenge.
Yes. Yes. I did that all my life. Sometimes when I did that, I got into trouble, but most of the time I was okay.
That's wonderful. All right. If there aren't any other comments, I would call this a close and wish you all a very nice day, night, rest of your day, and join us again for our next event. Thank you all and stay safe.
Sure, I'll stay tuned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Nice meeting you, Deepak, and everybody else.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.